to us, too, it's all about Monterey Bay and the surrounding mountains. So we feel that the proposed construction of the deck, not the remodel, but the over-the-roof deck, is what obscures and blocks our view. This city has policies in place to prevent cases like this from happening, but the city planners ignored these policies. This is just one. On page 32 and 35 of your packet, there are numerous times when it's talking about protecting existing views. I think I counted 7 altogether on page 32 and page 35. So for the one point to be honed in on about sharing views, like I said, it talks about protecting existing views many more times than the sharing of views. As I said, the city has policies in place to prevent cases like this from happening, but the city planners ignored these policies, and that's what, to me, boggles my mind, in addition to just seeing how the view is obliterated by the proposed construction. These policies were established, the city policies were established to prevent your neighbor from building something that blocks your existing valuable views. If the planning department had initially done the proper research beforehand to see if the permit application actually complied with the city's written policies, had they then denied that permit for a proposed roof deck, we wouldn't be here. Architects also need to adhere to the city's policies and not ignore them. The city's policies were established to maintain a cohesive appearance and good community relations. Let's not pit neighbor against neighbor. The city staff report on 4/24 in April that started the whole thing rubber stamped false evidence and findings to approve a permit. This is when this case started, and this is when it should have ended. For the city officials to disregard its own policies is wrong. These decisions affect big money and real estate values. Ask any real estate agent how a bay view affects the value of a home. We're not opposed to my neighbor's remodel, only the roof deck. The proposed roof deck will definitely obstruct our existing view of the bay. It creates a solid band of wall. That netting is going to be solid wall that takes out the view. Please overturn the bar's decision of 710 and deny the proposed roof deck construction at 1892 Juarez. And I think I was allotted 10 minutes. May I please retain the balance of my 10 minutes for any questions or rebuttals?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, and thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Okay, we will open this up to public.
Oh, shoot.
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I wanted to show the two other slides that I had. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm all nervous.
It's quite all right.
Okay. Okay, so.
You can point, use the red button is a pointer.
Okay. So, again, you were there at the field trip, and it's kind of hard to see, but at the top of these stakes, going all the way to the point of that roof, that's supposed to be the handrail. Sorry, I'm shaking. And since this picture was taken, you see there, the netting was also put on the back because initially it wasn't flagged and staked the whole perimeter of the deck, and I insisted that also be done. So you'd have a better visual. The next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So anyway, this pretty much shows where that netting would create the solid wall. Mind you, below it is also going to be, solid wall with the stairway and that type of thing, but this represents more of the deck portion. And also, just as a reminder, if you're going to have a deck, it goes without saying that you're probably going to have a table and chairs and umbrella and that type of thing too. So, it's not just that wall, it's going to be all the paraphernalia and all the other apparatus that goes up above it. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Clock the time. We'll open it up to the public comment. Architect first.
My name's Alan Robinson. I'm the architect and applicant, and I have the property owner with us, Mr. Dronchak, who flew in from Phoenix to attend this hearing. He was also at the Architecture Review Committee. I would like to first, ask you to read the findings that the staff has prepared in the staff report. They did a very thorough job, very detailed, pointing specifics to the general plan and policies that were related. Mrs. Gabrielson is completely incorrect that staff has done a poor job on that. They've done an excellent job on that. To speak briefly of what she has appealed, there's a one-line statement. If you've seen the appeal, it says, proposed construction will, 1894 Juarez would obliterate our view new from the attached photo. The attached photo is incorrect and misleading. In the field trip, you were not allowed to go into the bedrooms where there was views from those windows that were clearly presented at the last commission hearing, clear views of open water views all the way across the bay. So Mrs. Gabrielson has been consistent in misdirection and inconsistencies and misrepresentations of several general policies, particularly in the one about, I can have my view, but you can't have yours. In other words, she is saying, I have a panoramic view, and you're not allowed to have yours. Well, we were here the last time with you all to get the approval for the stairs. And I know we had the field trip then. And that stair was important, and the stair was part of the conversation, but most of that conversation tonight was about the views and the purpose in having a roof deck. We're not going to just build a stair to go nowhere, so it was clearly related to the roof deck. And you all discussed that at length in the thing about the views, and the repositioning of the roof deck was brought up. And the reason it's where it is now, so that we do not look into the adjacent neighbors, the place where it is now, so that we don't, look into the backyard. And as Mr. Silva would point out, when Mrs. Gabrielson did the addition to her house, she gave no consideration to privacy of her downslope neighbors. Their back setback is 5 feet, giant windows that have been looking into their bedroom windows and backyard ever since that addition was made. So in terms of what's right and wrong about this, is that she has hers, and by God, they can't have theirs. That's not right. That's not what the general policy is about. And so what we've done is, if we take a look at this picture, by the way, those people must be 9 feet tall, but what I'm saying is that what we're talking about there is something that when we started this design on the project, we evaluated whether we wanted to have a roof deck or not. If we don't have a roof deck, by statutory limits, we can build 18 feet without any review by Planning Commission or ARC. So think about that wall, no roof deck, but think about that being 3.5 feet taller than it is now. Within our rights, within the rights of the city, and we brought this up. She is not willing to compromise about anything. Now, I will offer to you, since our time is limited, that I've got authorization from the client that we will make that not a solid wall, but a glass wall. We will make it a glass windscreen so you can see through it. But in terms of locating it at a different location, we are not willing to do that because where it is right now is the best for the community. We are not looking into people's backyards, and this was all brought up in the last Planning Commission meeting we had with you all. So we got approval for the stairs. It's unfortunate that when you approved the stairs, we couldn't approve the roof deck too and then gone to Architecture Committee, so we're back now. At great expense, Mr. Dronchak has done the flagging twice. We've been delayed almost 8 months, with this going on like this. And both times at the Planning Commission, you and the Architecture Review Committee, who has jurisdiction on what is boxy, what is architecturally appropriate, what is appropriate for the community, we got a unanimous approval by the Architecture Review Committee. In addition to that, they lauded it and saying, this is really a great project. It looks great. We really like it. It's really showing what Seaside can be instead of what Seaside is. So we are fortunate to have 3 lots, so by obviously our house is going to be bigger. But if you look at the aerial floor plan, if we could return to that, Mrs. Gabrielson's house is much bigger than this house, and it looks right into their property. So I'm talking a little bit righteous indignation because the hypocrisy of Mrs. Gaelson's position is really unsettling. So I'm just saying again, we elected not to go to 18 feet, which is our capability, without any reviews. So by bringing it down to the 15 feet, it's actually a little less than that, but 15 feet's an easy number to remember. So we're saying that our compromise would be to provide glass guardrails. We need to have guardrails on the roof deck. But other than that, we don't think moving it is appropriate, and that we are right within our rights on this project. The city says you can have a roof deck. We checked that out. We said, look, we can build it up here, down there. I said to Mr. Dronchak, let's be compatible. Now, we have gotten letters and comments from our neighbors all around us who love it. We have several people tonight who are prepared to speak. And I will also say that Mrs. Gabrielson has done this before. A man across the street wanted to build a second story to his house, and she intimidated him to the point where he didn't go through with it by threatening lawsuits and everything. So we have a person who has a pattern of doing this. And I'm saying when she says staff did a bad job, staff did a great job. They just don't agree with her. And just because you don't agree with staff doesn't mean you're right when staff is actually correct. And they did a terrific job on outlining the case. That's why I'm not going into great detail, because it's in the document that you have before you. So I'm saying, please don't deny this project. Staff recommends that you approve, that you deny the appeal, and we can move forward. Mr. Dronchak is trying to move out here. His family lived in this house, but now he's had to delay his selling of his house and all the other things. So Mrs. Gabrielson has really physically and financially damaged Mr. Dronchak. And it's very upsetting that she's abusing her rights by misdirection and obfuscation of the truth in the general plan policies. So I hope that you'll see that Architectural Review Committee and your own review of this project, two bodies of the city who have unanimously approved this project and also commented that it's really a good project, so we'd like to see this. I hope that you'll agree with the staff's report and that we will be able to proceed with the next phase. I appreciate the time. Any questions?
Any questions about that? No, thank you. How much time do you have on this clock? I think you still got another 10 minutes. Were we on the 10 minutes? No, only the applicant gets 10 minutes. Everybody else is 3 minutes. I thought it was going on, and it seemed longer than normal. Okay, we will hear open public comment to people wishing to speak on this matter. So this is 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, you guys. I'm Donna Penwell, and I live at 1884 in Adena, which is just directly across the street from Linda. And I really, really resent the comments of the architect about Linda. She is a very, very sweet lady, and I think it's our right as citizens of Seaside to go through a democratic process to get houses approved. And so I think we're just doing what you guys allow us to do as far as speaking to the issues about houses being built in our neighborhood. So as I said, I have lived across the street from Linda's house for about 13 years. I knew her dad. Her dad built the house, and he was a fixture in the neighborhood until he passed away about 6 years ago. He was always out in the yard, talking to the passerbys, taking care of the yard. And when he died 6 years ago, Linda, who grew up in this house and currently lives in Houston, looking forward to her retirement here in Seaside in January of next year, I got to know Linda really well. And she grew up in that house, as I said. She went to all the local schools. She tells great stories about growing up on the street, the sand dunes down at the end of the street. How about the horse corral that used to be on the corner of LaSalle and Nadina Street? So she has a really good feeling and history with the neighborhood. When Linda's dad built the addition, the family room on the house, which I understood was maybe just a few years after the house was built, He put in that picture window so they could have a beautiful view of Monterey Bay that can be seen day and night. And you know, a lot of our houses on Adena Street have exactly those kind of windows. If they weren't there before, when the house was originally built, I know a lot of our neighbors, including Elizabeth Arwenstorff, who lives down at 1829 Adena. She wrote a letter to Mr. Medina, but for some reason it's not included in the packet, and she couldn't come tonight, but she has a similar view. So when I was talking with a lot of neighbors on our street, they said, oh, you know, the city of Seaside is never going to allow a house to block the views. You know, we've lived here forever, and we heard that that was going to be the case, that we'd always have our views. And so, you know, I'm the block captain for our neighborhood watch, and so I get to talk to our neighbors a lot. And I said, hey, you know, that's not the case. There is a plan for a house, a structure to go up and totally obliterate Linda's view. And they were our neighbors were very worried and pretty shocked, and even said, hey, if the city lets a structure like that be built behind Linda's house, what about our house? What about the fact that, you know, down at 1829 Adena, where she has a gorgeous view, if they build a house behind her, she loses her view totally. So I understand that there are city ordinances that address views, and you've read them all there. They state that the city will protect private views of significant
Ma'am.
natural features such as Monterey Bay.
Ma'am, your time is coming to an
Okay,
end.
let's make sure we're not setting a precedent here for ruining views. Let's think of the big picture as far as Seaside goes in the future.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
No, we
It was
read it.
given to them as part of the letters that were after that.
Hello, my name is Gundy Retke. I live at 1894 across the street from Ms. Gabrielson. And what I see is a neighbor who's very responsible and a good neighbor. I don't think she would do a similar thing without contacting the neighbor across the street from her. But that's only because I know her and I knew her parents. I'm here not for an emotional purpose, even though it's hard not to be, but what I see is a neighbor who's having to spend a lot of money after a surprise that her view is going to be taken. Not only the two round trips from Texas, but you know the appeal process is also very expensive. It's $834. And what I'm disappointed in is that we're neighbors. We're all neighbors. I don't have anything against the people who are improving their home. I just don't see what's fair about this. When I look out the Gabrielson's window and I see a wall that's going to be constructed there, that's very obviously, to me, wrong. And I don't know how a stairway was approved without someone understanding that there's going to be more building because of that. And I was really disappointed in the Board of Architectural Review because I put my name on a list for their field trip as well. And one of the members came late to the meeting and said he had seen the view, and he was the one that initiated the vote to allow this construction. I later went home and looked at my security cameras. He came into my yard. He talked to a neighbor or someone that wasn't even living there, never even stepped foot into her yard, had no idea what the impact was, and yet he was able to initiate the vote that brought us here tonight. Keith Mitchell was the board member. I feel that I don't think anyone's view is protected right now. I'm concerned about mine. I'm fortunate only a small portion of my view is blocked from the driveway, and some of you may have seen that when you stepped up to my garage door. I just don't feel any confidence in protecting views after all these meetings and all this discussion. I'm very disappointed in the things that are being said about Ms. Gabrielson. The fact that there's a threat that it could go higher, that to me sounds like a threat. The implication that she's been peeping down into bedrooms, that's very disruptive to making any good decisions. Rumors of lawsuits being threatened, I can't even imagine. That would be interesting to follow up on. And it's just wrong information. In fact, I think it's Mrs. Drobcheck that grew up in the house, not Mr. Drobcheck. So I think he got that wrong too. I'm just disappointed all the way around. And I hope that all of the emotion aside, that you find a way to make this bad decision go away and make it fair. Because the people in Seaside who did have views shouldn't live in fear of losing them. Thank you.
Public comment is still open. Anybody wishing to come forward and speak?
Yes, I'd like to. 3 minutes. I'm Mark Dranchak. My wife and I, Jeanette, are the property owners on Juarez Street. But I want to start off by saying, the field trip that we did on July 10th, it was open up to 2 rooms. We addressed it. There really wasn't any view blocking, okay? Then we go today, and it was kind of sneaky that now we got a different room, and those other 2 rooms are conveniently unavailable. So I think it's a little misleading, but anyway, nonetheless. My wife and I bought this house 7 years ago. We bought it from her family, okay? It's been in the LaQuarta family for early 1960s. She grew up in this house, okay? This house is small. It's in need of remodel, and we currently don't have any ocean views. Okay, our intent is to move back here next year when my wife retires, but we want to move back to a remodeled house. So we talked to 3 architects, and we gave them instructions. We want to, we own the side lot. We want to expand the house. We want a master suite. We want to add a second car garage, alleviate some of the parking issues. But we also want ocean views, and we'd like it from a raised level, a second level. But at the same time, be mindful and considerate of view sharing. Okay, that was the instructions that we gave to 3 architects. The 3rd architect was Alan, and I think Alan did a fantastic job. His design, which is the one that we liked and we chose, it maintains the house at a single level with second level views, which is exactly what we wanted. Because we gave consideration to sharing views, which is encouraged by city guidelines, okay? As you know, he was able to achieve that with a rooftop deck, okay, above the garage. The design, our height is approximately 15 feet, which is about 6 inches higher than the existing roof line, okay? The roof deck, everything complies with codes, guidelines, everything. We think that we've done everything appropriately by the book, okay? We don't require any variances, okay? Plus, we felt that if we went to 18 feet, which we all know, okay, but we didn't do that. We knew we could do that. We didn't do it. We thought that if we were stayed 3 feet below, we would be below or we'd eliminate any view controversy. Again, we're about 6 inches higher than the existing roof line. We think this design we think is attractive. We think it's reasonable.
Sir, sorry, time's up.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. My name is Diane Dranchak Onaka. I'm Mark's sister and Jeanette's sister-in-law. So I just wanted to pose that. I grew up in Seaside. Mark grew up in Seaside. We lived on Waring Street. We lived on Mariposa. We lived on Mingo. And so I went to Ord Terrace High School. So did Mark, Seaside High, King Junior High. So we're not someone who's coming from out of state coming in here and saying, forget what the city wants and what the neighbors want, but we want to have, move back. He wants to move back to Seaside. This is where his roots are. So I've known him, his neighbors too, in Arizona. He's never been a bad neighbor. I mean, he has friends with all the neighbors. He never does anything malicious, so that's why it's a little bit confusing about coming here and some of the way that it's positioned, that we grew up in Seaside too. I mean, we have history here too. So I look forward to him coming back, visiting their new house and the deck. So, you know, and it was just a little bit confusing going to the house too for the field trip, as I thought we were going to look out the other window as well. So we didn't get to do that. We got to look out this one window, and it was a tiny little area. And if you're sitting down, nobody's going to see the view either. No one's going to see it. So you have to really stand up, and maybe it's because I'm short, I didn't see any view, you know, basically. So I just thought that it may be a little bit mean-spirited. You know, I don't know her, but I just think it's a little bit mean-spirited to kind of go through this over and over again, you know, even though it's been approved. So I look forward to my brother moving back to the state. I miss him, and I'd love to be on that roof deck. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment is still open? At the end, ma'am, after.
Oh, one more.
So I'm Andy Kreider. I'm a friend of Mark Dranchak and Diane. And so I just came down to support. But what I thought was interesting in the whole thing is back to what has been said before, is that I had seen pictures of the, actually of that wall. And the original ones were actually, I think the wall was all the way across. And it wasn't just basically the portion that is flagged now. The other thing is that going in there is that I'm actually pretty tall, okay? Taller than Diane is. And when I was looking out the window, I could see about that much of the view was being blocked. Okay, it's a very small piece. And to your point, yeah, you know, the Sillamar was being blocked. But I thought that was very interesting that we couldn't see the other two rooms. And I understand that, you know, she said that the view is being obliterated, okay? I didn't see that at all. I think that she still has views, okay? Some of it's being taken out, but she still has views of, and it's view sharing. And you know, it seems to be disingenuous to me that say that you would not allow people to see the views from the other windows, because I don't think the rules say that you would have to have a view all the way across the back of your property or back of the house. And so that was the other point. The other thing I think is that, you know, if it's approved, there's nothing to prevent her from putting a roof deck on her house if she wants to view again. It may be a little bit expensive, but Mark's incurred a lot of expenses to remodel his house, and he's incurred a fair amount of expenses and delays because of this whole process and what she has done. And finally, I think, you know, they were talking about, you know, disking her and all that, and I said, well, she kind of started it by disking the board and saying that, you know, they were unethical or they didn't follow the rules or et cetera. So, you know, it's kind of the pot calling the kettle black.
Public comment still open?
I lived in Juarez for like only a year, so I hope my neighbors will still love me. But Joanna Castro. And so I attended the meeting because when I saw the house, like the flag, me and my husband were excited because it would be a sign of progress. So, so I tried to look at the view. I don't really see obstruction. Maybe from my point of view, I don't really see that much obstruction. So I hope my neighbor would compromise. And the one they said they might like have the glass, that would be okay, something to consider, because me, I also plan to have a roof deck glass in the future. Again, it's a sign of progress. Thank you.
John De La Cruz, a friend of the family. change is good. I've been here in the Monterey Peninsula and actually grew up in Seaside, came here in the early 70s, when there was nothing on Broadway. But look at Broadway now. Look what Seaside has done down to the lower end of Broadway. Brought in businesses, and it looks beautiful down there. So change is good. And Mark's and the architect's design is beautiful. We all get stuck on our old ways. We got to look at change because change is good. You know, we all don't fit in a box. We all have to think outside the box. Thank you.
My name is Daryl Hansen. I'm friends with Mark Dranchek. I just don't understand why we're here. Progress is nice. It's going to make the neighborhood look a lot better. It's going to give the houses down the street and all around the neighborhood maybe a little wild hair saying, hey, look at how nice that looks. Maybe that we should do that too. You know, we have that inheritance, or we have that, you know, that money sitting aside. Maybe we should make it look that nice. That looks really nice too. It looks nice for our city. It looks really good. Now this right here, can you all see that right there? You can all see that, I'm sure you can. Now we're talking about three more.
Yeah, this isn't a thing.
Okay, we're talking about 3 more feet up. How's your view now of that? That's what her view would be right there, if they wanted to get stinky about it. Mark's not that kind of guy. He's not gonna get stinky about it. But that's the view that the neighbor in the back's gonna see, blocking everything, if he goes 3 more feet high. It's a no-brainer. Thank you for your time.
Public comment still open? Public comment still open? Okay, we'll bring it back to the applicant. You want to come back for your, how many minutes do we have?
It was about, I thought 6.
Okay.
Planning Commission, I hope that you take the opportunity to refer to all my correspondence since the initial staff report on 424. I too, I'm coming from Texas a long way. My husband and I also plan to retire, but that's besides the point. You know, I grew up here, yada, yada. You know, I don't want to shed tears, get the sympathy vote, all that kind of stuff. In essence, it's blocking our view, the raised proposed roof deck. As far as the comments go, I really took offense to a lot of those things. The remodels to our house was done by my dad in the late 60s. I was a teenager then. I don't think any neighbors had any problem with anything. The neighbors across the street in those, you know, from that perspective, they don't have a problem. Anytime one of my trees grows too big, I chop it down because I'm considerate of my neighbor's view. As far as looking into my neighbor's window, I mean, I live uphill. I'm not a peeping Tom. I don't care. I don't want to see anything from my neighbors, you know, so I take offense to that also. And as far as a compromise go, I haven't heard any compromise as far as what they're willing to do design-wise. As far as a history, neighbors, lawsuit, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Ma'am, would you address us?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
But he talked about a lawsuit and neighbors. I don't even know. That's a complete fabrication. That's a lie. That's outrageous. I wouldn't obstruct my neighbor's view. And the last lady that spoke, she talked about, you know, seeing the construction, getting excited about it. Did she see the view from our window? The family room window is the main window that we would look at the bay from. When the bar came, that was a smaller group. Today, I don't know how many people were there, 20, 25, 30. And the last time when the bar was at the house, we did see the view from the other, and as a matter of fact, privacy is a big concern from the bedroom window. I mean, it's pretty blatant. But I understood from the conditions that we had the option of eliminating it, and with that amount of people, I didn't feel comfortable going all over the house, and that, like I said, that is the main contention, that room, that window. And as far as change is good, I'm all for progress when it's at the benefit and the goodwill of everybody involved, not just a few. So, I guess that's all I have to say about that. Do you have any questions for me? Oh, one thing I wanted to say about the staff report. There were a lot of things point by point in the policies, and I had mentioned this in my initial correspondence on 425 as soon as I known about the report, and that the approval and the permit for the stairway, which was odd to me. It's like, how can they approve a stair? It's going to go up to something. I'm not, for that roof deck. How can that be? It's like it was in the wrong order. Anyway, in that staff report, there were many assumptions that, as far as the findings and the evidence, when that wasn't the case, because nobody ever came to look at the view. I don't care whatever the height spec was. If it's 18 feet, if it's 12 feet, it blocks the view, and it's not right. I think if the neighbors, if the shoe was on the other foot and it was their home and I was obstructing their view, they'd be just as upset. And I don't want to, this is terrible, I don't want to fight with my neighbors. I don't like this kind of conflict and controversy, but I think it's not right and it's not fair, and so that's why I'm taking it here. So anyway, in the staff report, if you go through all the different findings and the evidence, I have a copy where I highlighted where I thought it wasn't accurate, and that's why I felt it wasn't fair or right. And when the architect said that, saying like they did a terrific job or whatever, I kind of felt that it was rubber stamped, and it was just given approval without really looking into the specifics of everything. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, we will close the public comment and bring it back to the, pardon me? No,
You can only open it for specific comments and questions that you think are relevant to the
Correct.
commission's discussion.
The only reason that the appellant gets to come back is she saved her time. She didn't go through her entire 10 minutes, and the reason that she gets more than is she is paid for this. She has paid a big fee to the city for this. Okay. Why are we here? We're here because of a process of the city. We're not here to stall anybody, but this is the due course that we take, that every homeowner, if it was opposite and she was there and you were, we would go through the exact same process. We listen to everybody. We are the final one before it goes to city council, and that's just the way it is. When we went out to the site, we were only there to look at a stairwell. We were not there to look at views or anything else when we first looked at this. I just wanted to make this clear right off the bat. There's certain things that we have to look at as planning commissioners that everybody thinks we're looking at no, we're looking at one specific item, and that was the stairwell when we went out there, and that is what we approved. We didn't have any idea of views or anything like that. So just wanted this up front as to what we originally went for back in June, okay? All right, so I'm going to bring this back to the commissioners. We'll start with you, Mr. Evans, and we'll work right down the line.
Yeah, I also kind of wanted to mention why we're here, and that's because views are incredibly emotional. Having been in the development world for many years, I don't think there's anything more contentious that I've experienced than views. Do a Google search on lawsuits involving views. It's pretty eye-opening, and it's heartbreaking in many respects, but not to make things worse for those of you that are concerned about your views, but as I mentioned earlier, in the state of California, you have no right to a view. So yes, your view is at risk every day you live uphill from somebody, whether it's a tree, whether it's a building, whatever it is, an RV. The lawsuits have been about all those things, and this case law has been very, very clear.
There are some contractual exceptions, and you can read about those, but they would not apply in this case, in my opinion. I'm still baffled that we have a general plan that has these goals and policies. I think it's wonderful that we do, and I'm glad the explanation that staff gave about, shared views and trying to accommodate. I mean, that's very healthy and that's very, very good. But at the end of the day, the bottom line comes back to, in the state of California, it's not this, I used to do development all over the country, and it's not the same in every state, but in California, it was real clear to us. The other thing that causes me concern is I am really loath to reverse the Board of Architecture review on something that they put a lot of time and effort into without a very compelling reason, like a state law that says, no, they were wrong. So for me, I'm just concerned about, ultimately, I know what the courts are going to say on a case like this, and I have to respect what the bar did.
I'm looking at the options that we were given, and one of them, on the fourth one, it says, is it possible to find a balance that preserves a portion of the uphill property's view? And I believe there is, from the bedroom. In the pictures that I can see, the view from the bedroom is much better in our documents than it was from the family room. I had to get on my tippy toes to see just the point. I don't know, Lover's Point. I couldn't see a Sillamar. So again, like next to me, and the glass is good. That would be an excellent thing. But from my point of view and how I looked, and not being physically able to see from that bedroom window, but the picture shows it to me that I can actually see the bay way better from the bedroom window than I could from the den. So again, the bar, I agree with the bar.
Yeah, I want to get back to the general plan policies. You're instructed to take those as sort of a guiding principle here, even though there is state laws about this. And I look at implementation plan UD-2.1.1, and I'll sort of shorten it, but it says adopt development procedures to protect existing private views and access to sunlight as much as possible, while at the same time allowing others the opportunity to enjoy the magnificent views from Seaside. And I think we have a classic case of that right here. And I like the fact that as the architect mentioned, they're willing to compromise, and we've had a couple of these cases come up over the last years with views, and invariably, compromise was part of the process. And the way the general plan is written, that's almost inevitable. And I think with the glass as part of the design, I think we're actually trying to achieve what this says. So I have no problems with this at all. I would, however, like to see that the glass be made part of the design if possible.
As with other situations that have come before us, I've always been the kind that likes to approach a compromise. I echo my other commissioners' sentiments, like the idea of the glass, and of course that there's a view from the main bedroom, and the owner of the project obviously has stated he does not want any issues with neighbors, and as well as the appellant. So a compromise coming to the implementation sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, I've got a question for staff. If the owner of the house wanted to build a two-story, would there have been any objections to that?
Well, obviously, I think you're experiencing just with a roof deck, so I would have to expect there would be some comment, yes.
So so they're compromising by going 15 feet with some view instead of a two-story with no view. That's what I'm understanding.
Well, yeah, you experience.
If everything.
You experience that through the property on Yosemite Street.
Yeah. But I do like that the owner's willing to compromise on putting the glass so someone can see through that. But I do have to agree with what the other commissioners had to say, so I'm not going to restate what they had to say. So that's the only question I had.
All my colleagues up here are saying a lot of the things that I was thinking of saying. So, you know, the issue of property rights is always challenging, and there's this unique challenge where one person's rights, because the folks who own the lot, the Dranchaks that want to build on it, they have a right to build on their property, as much as the folks uphill have a right to want to preserve their views. And when anyone exercises their rights, there's always some imposition upon the others. But we are a country, we are a state that respects property rights and property, the ability to do certain things within the bundle of those rights. And obviously to renovate a home, to go up to 2 stories potentially, that's part of that. And in all fairness, because the word fair was used a lot. It's not fair to take my views. Well, it's not fair to impede my ability for progress and to build. Fairness is something that cuts both ways. And obviously we have to give everyone the opportunity to exercise the use of their property the way that they want to. You know, as they've said, I'm aware that views are not legally guaranteed. I think it's really unique that our general plan attempts to find compromise, and that's then charged to us up here in a very difficult task. But legally, views aren't guaranteed. We don't ever have a right to a view. The only views that are protected are those from public space. And so as we attempt, as staff shared with us, to juggle this sensitive issue and try to find the compromise, one of the things that I think the appellant left out when she cited the general plan policies is it does say to protect existing private views, but she left out the while at the same time part, letting others enjoy those views too. And so we have to have that balance, and considering the point that 2 stories could be considered. The other thing, and I just need to state this, you know, because it presses on me to do so, the design's gorgeous. Doing minimalist modern right is very, very challenging from an architectural standpoint and proportions. The design is gorgeous. You are going to add so much value to the neighborhood with this project that's going to enhance multiple property owners around you. And yes, it may diminish to some degree the value of Ms. Gabrielson's house because some of her views are lost. But she still retains the right to go up with a roof deck or to a 2nd story. That is something she has a right to do, in all fairness. So those are things that I think we have to consider as well. I do support the idea of the compromise that was suggested, which would be replacing the wood slats on the railing on the top of the parapet wall with glass, which allows some more visual openness to go through. But I would also make the observation that the highest things that were in the view shed that were blocking the views from Ms. Gabrielson's house were actually trees that were 2 streets away. They were taller than that. And I grew up in a house in Carmel that had beautiful ocean views. And over the years, the trees grew up and they blocked the views. And we can't see the beach anymore because of the trees. And interestingly enough, the trees are more protected than the views. So we run into this predicament. So in any event, I realize this is a challenging situation. I appreciate staff's instructions and the general plan instructions to try to give everybody a piece of the pie, which isn't always going to happen. Somebody's going to be let down. But I certainly think the design is beautiful, and I think with the modification that is contemplated with glass at the top, I would be in support of it.
Thank you, Commissioners. I was here right where you were back in 1993. But the difference was we ended up building to the right side of our house, leaving the view shed on the left side. And that's what I think comes into play when we start building two stories or a 2nd deck and stuff, is setting them offset so that everybody gets their piece of the pie. When I went for mine, I wanted a big, we were living with multiple children in a very small home. And it took me over 7 months to get through mine. But During that time, we ended up shifting the house to the right. The neighbors kept the nice view through the left side, and we got the view on the right side. To me, that's what we're supposed to do here. When we build up on these, when you guys bought the house, you knew it was a small house, right? But then we have to look at the house as to how we can give view to everybody so that everybody doesn't lose. And I agree with you, she can build up, but does she have the funds for that? Maybe you're better off than her. I'm not here to decide that, but what I like to see is, I would like to see the netting of where the glass is gonna be. Because right now, what I see is the wall blocking, and I'm sorry, but if I have a view in my bedroom, that's not where we all sit and enjoy it. We're sitting in my living room when we enjoy that, not in a bedroom. So the living room is one of the most important parts to preserve a view. So I would like to see this netting where the actual glass is going. Unlike the rest of I couldn't vote for it the way that it stands because I see what she's losing, and I realize that granted she could put a rooftop deck too, but again, we're talking costs. Her house is already sitting there. That house was sitting there when it was bought. So to me, it could be looked at. When I look at the housing, I can see that they could build a second-story addition on the house that wouldn't block her view, because that's already blocked from her side anyways, leaving her the open path on the other side where you could put your two-car garage. But again, I'm not here to redesign your project, but as it sits right now, I cannot vote for this thing until I see where the netting is for the glass that she could see through and keep what she has right now within her living room. Thank you.
I make a motion that we adopt the resolution that staff prepared denying the appeal to overturn the Board of Architectural Review decision, approving the roof deck, with the added condition that the wood railing on top of the parapet wall be replaced with a glass that's visually transparent railing.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, let Keith, give it to Keith. He was first.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yay? Passed. An appeal may be submitted in writing within 7 calendar days from this event. It shall state the pertinent facts and be based with the required filing fees to the City Council. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We are Commissioners' report. I hate it when we don't get it. That's because I'm trying to do this thing.
I know, this one doesn't have it on there. Something to-
Thanks, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, number 8, report from commissioners. Page 2 of the packet.
Oh, that's me with that.
But I think that was the second time around. It is, to get to there we go.
We have- So I don't think there's anything on the agenda further, right?
Okay. Reports from commissioners. Any reports from commissioners?
None.
Reports from staff?
We have none to report.
Okay. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Silva and Evans?
It's a tough one. Sorry I stole you. I'm so glad that you had one though that actually had everything going, because not all of them are equipped the same. You couldn't get into it? Yeah, I had to, if you notice, I kept tapping. As soon as I noticed it go dim, I touch it. I wish you could cut the, go into the settings and leave it alone, to just let it be, but.
mentioning the wood.
This is my neighbor, Gundy Redkey. I wanted to introduce you to her. This is my favorite city councilor. I say that to everyone.
To all the councilmen, yes.
Well, Jason, you know, Jason too, and you know, you're the wizard too, and, yeah. No. She's good at that. She's gonna be up here one day.
Wait a couple years?
I really like David's comments. He was really very effective. So he didn't prevail. Gundy gets to work for the city hall. But she lives here in town.
Oh, that's good. Everybody taking some people.
I used to be a police, and I never liked it.
Fire's much better. It makes everybody happy.
So what do you think? Does it keep the parapet?
That spoke up very well.
Oh, thank you.
We'll see. It's like they're glassing up the whole top of the house. We'll see what happens.
I'm sure, hopefully it looks good. and
It's
everybody's
gonna,
happy.
well, that's the hope, of course. See you at the next planting.
Painting, I think will be next. I think we're gonna do painting next. I think so.
Well, we already did the bridge over by.
By the in and out?
Right.
We still have to do more on that.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought we should finish that before.
About the goals and-
I know. I think we gotta finish that bridge before rainy season though. I'm starting to get a little guilt.